Well, good morning. Nick Collier here, and we are in the more refined part of my studio because yesterday there was a huge windstorm that came through. The trees were just blowing all over the place, and somewhere along the line between here and town, some tree fell over an electrical line, and we don't have electricity. Now, I do have my little generator running, but it's not enough generator to run the heavy equipment. So I'm inside the studio. We're going to do a project that could take a little time. I have a trade going with the best restaurant in town, Ike's Quarter Cafe. Oh, it's such good food. And I make Ike and Adrian, his wife, a piece of jewelry or two every year, and in trade, they feed us whenever we're hungry. And you know, it's a better trade I couldn't have. Usually I make her a nice little gold piece, a really sweet gold piece, and but this time I'm going to make him a gold or a silver bracelet with some turquoise inlay. So we're going to get started on that project here, and we'll kind of go from there. Okay, first thing we're going to do is come up with some pretty heavy silver wire, and this is, I think, about 8 gauge round, and we want to run it through the rolling mill and come up with some rectangular. And so the first run is to squeeze it through the mill and make it somewhat, I don't know if you can see that, let's see if we can get it in close, make it somewhat square. And I think what we'll do is just go ahead and bring it down a little further. That was the wrong way, we want to go the right way. Bring it down a little further, and then we can and I don't know if you can see this, but because there was a gap in that, there's a little nibble. Like you can see, it's got just kind of a little ridge right there. Let's see, can you see that? It's hard to get it to focus. These cameras have an automatic focus that drive me crazy. But anyhow, so what I'm going to do is run it back through to get rid of that that little ridge. All right, that's better. I think that's pretty much going to get us where we want to go. Let me make sure you've got a good focus on that. No good focus no matter what. Oh, maybe that might work. So we're back to square. So let's, I think what we want to do now, and we could probably just do that just by adjusting the camera a little bit. There we go. Maybe a little bit more light. Oh, that'll help. Something like right there. Yes, and of course now that I'm going to tap on it, probably the camera is going to wiggle. But we want to get this thing as straight as possible. And the leather mallet will give more than having to, more than banging on the metal and having it get squashed and torqued. And we're starting to get a straight line here. That's pretty good. Yeah, I'm sure this camera is just going all over the place. Let's switch your And I make it extra thick because by the time we get to the finish, I will have sanded off and filed off a lot of the diameter of the material. So I always leave extra. There we go. That's pretty straight. There's one little rib right there. Let's see if we can get that to straighten out. That's pretty good. Now the whole thing's got just a bit of an arch to it. Not bad. Good for a start. Now the cool part about trading with Ike and Adrian is they kind of give me an idea of what they want. Like, oh, I want a pair of earrings, or I want a bracelet. And then they pretty much kind of let me flow with how I want to do it. So I can get creative and play with design. This one I want to, and of course I have to check it with them as I go, but this one I think I want to have very angular. So so we're going to make a very angular design, and he's got a standard wrist, just a little bit smaller than mine, so I'll be able to use my wrist as a guide. And I'm thinking we're just about right there for the width. You know, this is going to wrap around. So let's get a pen. Okay. I don't see any pens. Here's one. All right, so about like that, I'd say. We're going to come in and make our first bend right there. So what I want to do is I'm going to wedge out a little triangle out of that piece of silver. Now since we're working with silver, I'm going to pull my gold tray. And trade it for my silver tray. Okay, so let's get I'm thinking square file, and I need to get some glasses. Well, we can use optimizers here. Okay, so basically just start filing. Now, nice thing about silver, unlike steel, is it's fairly soft. And so it'll take to a file or a saw without too much effort. So our notch, bring it in close, see if you can see it. Our notch is about halfway. And I think that might be, now let's take it a little further. There we go. So we take it and just bend it over, and we get ourselves a nice angular turn there. Now let's see what that looks like. And I would say my next turn is going to be somewhere right in here. Something like about there. Now we missed just a little bit, see that? But that's not too bad. We can play with that a little bit until we come up with something that fits. Now what I have to do from this point is take it over to him, put it on his wrist, and see if everything is close or if we need to mess with it for a little bit. But in the meantime, I think what I also want to do is I want to come up with another design. Give him a choice. And he gets to choose whether we have a asymmetric or a symmetric. And this would be our symmetric design. And now let's try for an asymmetric one. Now, at this point, where our wire is a little bit still bent, so we need to straighten that out. We'll be back. Okay, we started with this, which to me was incredibly boring, and I just couldn't go any further. So I came back in and started working with a little bit different design. And we're still kind of working it, trying to get this thing to lay in there. Now this is just roughing out a pattern. Who knows if it's going to work or not. Who knows if Ike's going to like it or not. Okay, so we just notched that. Now we'll bring it down and see if we can get it to kind of match up a bit. This is just about ready to break right there. So I think what we want to do is go ahead and get that straightened up. And that's pretty good. I'm going to take it over to the torch and go ahead and weld that junction because it's just about ready to go. I'll be right back. Oh, let's go. Okay, we're going to drop a little flux in that junction and fire up the torch. All right. That strengthens it up a little bit. Let's take her back over to the bench. Okay, so now we can go ahead and tweak it a little bit and not worry about it breaking. At least I hope. Yeah, it's going to be good and strong. All right. So there's a good start. And I think what I also want to do is bring this down just a little bit. And bring this up more like that. That's pretty good. That's got some creative playfulness to it, that's for sure. Whether it's going to actually work or not, I don't know, but it's certainly worth playing with. Maybe we might take this edge here down just a little bit more, just to kind of meet up with it. Just to flatten things out. Now notice there's a bit of a V there, so what we'll do is we'll take this and bring it around. Not so easy. How about if we saw a little bit of it first? Then bring it around. There we go. That's much better. Okay, and I'm seeing one more V right here at the very base of that. All we're trying to do is just weaken that metal a little bit so it can be bent. Ouch! Well, that didn't work. Let's crank on it a little bit more here. Okay, let's go down further. All right, we're about halfway down. It should be weak enough now. Jesus. It's not bending. There we go. Got a little bit of a bend out of it that time. I think just a little bit more. That looks pretty good. Yeah. Nice. Bring this in, and looks like when I was torquing it, I kind of torqued a few things a little bit too close. So that's not bad. We can play with that. So let's take it over to the torch, right, and weld up this junction here, and then we can bend everything out to come back to where we want it to. Okay, so we got it fairly close. We're gonna put a little flux on there. Crank up the torch. Get some more hard solder. Okay, here's the part where I get to play with design a little bit. I don't exactly like the profile of that right now, but with just a little bit of tweaking and torquing, we can bring it back in a little bit better. That's still not up to par for me. Maybe I can just kind of bend that just a bit. Bend that around. That looks a lot better profile-wise. And get this thing to come out just a little bit. Much better. This line here is going to be okay. See how this goes up and the back one kind of stays level? You know, I don't like that. So I think what I want to do is just go ahead and cut this junction and cut a little section out and bring that down. Yeah, that looks better. A little bit more maybe even. Let's take just a bit more out of that. Yeah, that looks better. Okay, so I'll take this back over to the bench and weld this junction back up, and we will be back in a moment. Okay, knowing that I was pretty well resolved with the design, at least until Ike gives me the okay, I went ahead and welded everything up so that it's good and strong. Looks like I missed one right there. No, two junctions I missed. So maybe I'll take it back and weld those two up. That way I can start filing. Oops, maybe the third one right there. Okay, so we've got it pretty well set up here. I think what I want to do is I'm just going to come in and just hit the highlights here, just so it's nice and polished, so he can see where I'm trying to go. You know, I'm looking at it and I would much rather see this a little shorter. Much better, much better. Let's see if we can get this thing down. Yeah, no problem. Let me file these flat. And we'll just tweak it down so it hits. There we go. We're going to go hit that one more time on the welder, or on the torch. Yeah, that'll be better. And that even looks better. Okay, I'll be right back. Okay, I think we got her fairly well resolved. There's one little part that I'm having just a bit of a problem with this angle and that angle are not equal with one another. I may change that later, but for right now, since we're going to go in and have lunch at Ike's in a few minutes, I'm going to want to get this thing ready for him. And so I just want to kind of bring it up to a polish and square up the edges and make it look good so that he can see what it looks like, what it's gonna look like in its finished state. Well, you know, of course this is not the finished state, but this is close. Not even close, actually. It's the plan is to come in and do a rib series of turquoise all throughout the interior of this. But the exterior design might be in its almost finished state. So I'm just kind of cleaning up edges and all right, that looks pretty good. There's that one little edge there I want to get rid of. That's a little better. Okay, so now I think what we'll do, yeah, this outside needs a little help. We're going to take it over to the buffer and just see how it buffs out. We should be able to get a decent buff out of that. We'll be back. Okay, now we're in the buffing room. A little compound on that. And we'll just give this just a quick polish, just so that he can see what's possible. What do you think? Yeah, better. All right, I think that's pretty well got it. We're going to take this to him today when we go have lunch and see if he likes it. And if he does, we continue the process. And we'll be back in who knows how long, a week or a couple of days or a month.